It's a rare privilege when we have somebody like Professor Mark Esposito coming into our little humble office in our little studio here in Dubai. I met Mark a few months ago and we sort of connected. We've have a lot of values in common, and we just basically both are mad and want to go out there and change the world. And that's why we are here together, is how we can do that. Mark is a wonderful man, and from whichever aspect I try to sort of meander my way, I keep discovering. It's like, you know, peeling the onion, finding new things about him. And today is about that heart to heart, that about his why, and really just connecting in terms of the brilliance of his career, but also about his life and how he's making a difference. Mark, welcome.
Thanks
Great
so
to see you.
Thanks for having me here.
It's a real pleasure. Good to see you.
I was a very curious kid, right? I wanted to know why. I came from an international family. Mom and dad were from Italy and the UK. And so for me, growing up in North America was to have this geographical dislocation about why are they so different from everything that I... And I was also very contemplative. I was asking myself a big question when I was a kid, right? And I was in my little world. I have friends, but I also felt very lonely at the same time. I had these ongoing paradoxes in my life where I was feeling... I don't really have all the answer, but I have this drive that really wants to know more. And I think I've been, as a result, restless since I was a kid. And this feeling that you never arrive, you never finish, you are on a perpetual beta, and that never ends.
But that's, in a way, that really sort of evolved you, made you stronger. And perhaps it gave you that drive for overachievement, because you're a grossly overachiever. I mean,
I say what drives me is just desire of making an impact in this world. I have this feeling that I was born with a purpose, and that purpose is not just to fulfill an existing script, but create my own script. And I start noticing now, with the benefit of age, that many of the former people that I might have met in my life, if I was able to help them, they have exceeded me in any possible dimension, right? And that's my major metric success. But it's addictive. As you're helping people to become who they are, and you feel happy because as an educator or as an author you can do that, then you just say, now I want more, right? You want to scale more. And this feeling that I fear I will carry with me for the rest of my life.
How do you define yourself? Are you an educator, businessman, consultant, entrepreneur, social player?
You know, I'll start from myself. This idea of the polymath man, I like it. And I think, why should I deprive myself from experiencing life at so many different degrees, right? Or shades. I would say there are more and more people that go in that direction. We learned that being very specialized and narrow was working well in the 20th century. But in the conversation we were having before about the 21st century, we need people that are transversal, capable of covering different depths. And I'd rather know a little bit about something or everything than just having a specific knowledge. And I don't have the presumption to be an expert. You know, I don't want to be an expert. But my expertise comes from the confidence that if there is a problem I have no idea about, I will not surrender. I will simply cope with it. And I think that's the degree of transformation that I think has happened in our society.
You know, one of the things I describe about myself, that I, as the creator of Mad Talks, is that I'm eccentric. I think to some extent you are too.
Yeah.
And the literal meaning of eccentric is to be off-center.
Yes, that's right.
So basically we are the outliers. We're the ones that
Absolutely.
are bringing about that change. And we're the ones who are taking that risk, because the whole world is sort of norming, and we need to be on the outlier cell. How do we create this energy to get more people inspired? How do you inspire people?
See, when you're looking at kids, they all are eccentric in some capacity,
Indeed,
right?
absolutely.
But they become standardized the moment they go into school, and they have to learn standard rules, right? And they get graded on their individual assignments. How do we empower kids to become who they want to become? How do we make sure that creativity is not only for a graffiti artist, but as an element of how we redesign our rules? So how do we empower people to define their own fulfillment? I think if we're empowering people to become who they're meant to become, then we naturally are empowering them. The biggest gift that you can give is to give people a purpose that they always had but never seen.
Right. You know, you seem super successful. Can you tell us a few failures that you've had in your life?
A few? I think, I don't know, I think many failures. everything from my first startup company that I opened back in 2003 or 4 that was trying to emulate the job I was doing as a younger one that was called Youth for Europe. It was supposed to bring people over and tour them around. It never took off, right? It never really happened. I was a failure when I was a student. Sometimes my papers were never accepted. I was a failure when I started to be an academic, and my paper was always rejected when I was sent into. And I was a failure when I was trying to make money out of this job because they wanted me for free. And so I was always facing no's. The number of no's I received are probably way more than the number of yes I have really achieved.
How do you lift yourself back up again? How do you find that trajectory again? Because once you fall off the train, and now in Moore's Law world, which is also doubling every 2 years, 18 months, how do we get back on the train?
So I meet a lot of these students, especially not in their early 20s, but when they are in their mid-30s, and they come and do, for example, an executive program, or in their early 40s, right? Where they have seen what things are all about, and they have just taken a bad turn, or something has happened, right? So I always tell them, do not compromise on who you are to become somebody that you're not supposed to become. Many of them, they wanted to be consultant for one of the big four. Many of them went and worked in a bank thinking that will give them that prestige. Truth is that you cannot shortcut in life. You cannot leapfrog. You have to go through the process of building who you are. And that process can never happen at the expenses of your own identity. And I think the only suggestion is whenever you talk to them, at one point in time in their life, they decided that they could trade off who they are with what they would like the other people to see them. And that's when they lost themselves.
Any final bit of advice, any final comment, any thought that you'd like to share with the millions of people who will be watching this?
Really measure success in your own life depending on the people who surround you, depending on the way your heart beats, right? Don't think success is something that looks like the number of things you've done, the number of degrees you have. Define your life trajectory based on how you would like people to remember you, right? In the most genuine sense. I remember when I was Mark and I was 7, 8, 9, 10. I remember when Mark became a professor, when I did my PhD, when I started teaching at Harvard. These beautiful things that make my life proud. But I never forgot that I was Mark, even before becoming those things. And when those things will end, and I'll be on my 90th birthday, all I need to remember is who is Mark, right? So for me, that's really the sense of continuity, that we are nothing more than an evolving story, that if we keep in our core intact, we can experience this in multiple ways. But I love people to become who they're meant to be, right? It's beautiful, and even if it's not true and it's illusion, it's a nice story to believe in.
And my lasting memory of this interview was love. With that beautiful words, thank you very much.
Can you go hug?
Absolutely.
Thanks so much.